Hi, fifth graders. Today we are going to be reading chapter 18 of Pillage by Obert Sky. Remember in chapter 17, Beck was locked in his room by Miley, Wayne, and Thomas. And so he snuck out the window and climbed up to the top floor so he could have a little talk with his uncle. And again, his uncle didn't give him a lot, didn't make a lot of sense, but and then he had to sneak back down to his room. So that's where we're at. Excerpt from section 9 of The Grim Got Not as recorded by Daniel Phillips. The peddler wanted the stone back. His poorly executed curse was supposed to destroy the family, but in turn it had made them wealthy beyond imagination. The curse had also caused the peddler to be unable to die until the curse had been resolved. He threatened to expose Bruno and ruin the family. If the peddler had to live forever, he did not want to be poor. Bruno Pillage made the peddler a deal. If he was allowed to send the dragons out one more time, he would give the peddler the rest of the stones. Chapter 18, Disgusting Lie. I could hear a sharp knocking. It pounded loudly and sounded like it was coming from inside my head. I forced open my eyes to see Thomas nailing boards to my window. I bolted up in bed. "Easy now," Thomas said. "I'm almost done." "What are you doing?" I asked. Thomas turned. "It seems you spent some time outside your room last night. We just want to make sure it doesn't happen again. We can't have you falling and getting hurt." "This is crazy," I said. "My uncle will have a fit." "I suppose if he actually comes down, he might," Thomas said. I couldn't believe this was happening. I felt like the situation called for pleading. "Please, Thomas," I begged. "I'm sorry. I won't leave my room again. I'll stay out of the basement." Thomas turned and laughed at me. "This isn't about the basement," he smiled wickedly. "It's about your dragons." "My dragons?" I said, dumbfounded. "It's your purpose for being here," he said. How easy it was to manipulate the mind of a child. He shook his head. "What?" "Blame your family," Thomas said harshly. "Had your uncle acted like a true Pillage, none of this would be happening." "Pillage?" I asked. "Is this a joke?" "No," Thomas said. "I'm afraid this is most serious." "I'll get out," I threatened. "I doubt it, but if you do, Scott is watching the windows," Thomas said. "He was the one who informed us of your little escapade last night. He's outside right now, and for the record, he does not have your best interest in mind." "I don't believe this," I said, feeling more frightened than when I had first seen the dragons hatch. "Do you think it's easy to keep up this manner?" Thomas asked. "We've sold every bit of furniture and spent every dollar your family ever had. We auctioned off every animal and let go of everyone but the four of us. Tax time is coming, and we will not lose the manor." "Tax time? Money doesn't grow on trees," Thomas said. My head felt like it was going to explode. Thomas nailed the last board to the top of the window, closing out the final bit of natural light. "I don't understand," I said sincerely. "This wasn't my first option," Thomas said. "I've done everything I could to get Aaron to take some action, but he's turned his back on the gift your family is supposed to be cultivating. We needed you to wake the dragons." "Why me?" "You're a Pillage," he said. "Your ancestors changed your name when they came to America, but only a Pillage, only you, could wake the stones. That's why I needed to make sure Francine wouldn't be around to stop you from coming." He said the last line so sinisterly that my throat constricted and I dry heaved. "Nice," he said, disgusted. "Just perfect." "You hurt my mother?" I asked in disbelief, trying to breathe normally. "She was very ill," Thomas said, unlocking the door and stepping into the hallway. "Her life was fat with turmoil." "But the dragons need me," I reasoned. "The dragons need nothing now but permission to pillage." Thomas said, It has been too many years since they have come to life. Our coffers will be full again." "You brought me here for this?" I asked, exasperated. I'm afraid so, Thomas said. But Miley said, forget what was said, he insisted. It was all a lie. Mind yourself, and you might see the light of day again sometime. I do have a place for you. After all, you're a Pillage. Thomas exited the room, locking the door behind him. I didn't know what to think or how to feel, but I did know I needed to talk to Kate and Milo. I needed help. I had never wanted a phone so desperately in my life. I remembered seeing a few phone numbers sketched in the back of my mother's journal. I pulled the journal out of the dresser and flipped it open to the back. There were 5 phone numbers. One was the pharmacy, one was Pizza Hut, and one had no name next to it, and the 4th and 5th belonged to my mother's lawyer, Mr. Clare. For his office was 4 was his office and 5 was his home. I stared hard at the last 2 numbers, memorizing the digits. I put the journal back in my dresser and walked to the window. The boards were well secured. I grabbed the top one and set my feet against the wall, using all my weight to pull the board loose. It didn't budge. I let go and dropped my feet to the floor. I walked around the room, searching for a way out. Even though I knew perfectly well, I was trapped. I tried the door. I tugged at the boards on the window again. I pulled my dresser from the wall, hoping there might be a secret exit behind it. There was nothing but wall. I moved my bed, but like the dresser, it wasn't hiding anything surprising. I climbed onto the dresser and unlatched a metal vent on the ceiling. I was more than willing to climb through it, but the opening was at least a foot too small for me to fit through. Ah! I screamed in frustration. I pushed the dresser and my bed back against the wall as the bed shifted. The Grimgaunt knot slipped out from between the mattresses. I was grateful Thomas hadn't found it and taken it away. I picked up the book and sat down on the chair in the corner. I switched on the lamp that sat on the small end table and opened the book. There was a time when every Pillage had his eyes to the soil instead of the sky. The first line was much more interesting than I had anticipated. I looked at the little book, flipping it over and over in my hands. It reminded me of a small door. The thought of it being my only way out of the room struck me like a lightning bolt. I read on, stopping only when Thomas brought me in a bland lunch. By that point, I was on my 2nd read and already devising a plan to set things right. I couldn't believe how I had been fooled. And by whom? Hey friends, that's the end of chapter 18. I will see you tomorrow for chapter 19.